The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those Knuckleheads of Liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We're coming at you on November 21st, 2022, and just before Thanksgiving. And well, I guess we're thankful that we're over halfway through the Biden administration. But but this show, I guess what we're going to do is we've had a lot of guests recently, and we're finally able to catch up with some of the topics we've been wanting to get to, because we don't have a focus guest this week. So we want to talk about identity politics, because there's been a lot happening and we just haven't had time to cover some of those recently. So we're going to get into that. But before we do, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper right hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our upper left hand corner, we have our invisible hand, James Just. Our invisible hand looks like it's broken. Amazing what can happen when no one can see that. But James wears all kinds of hats, and he is the Sacramento Party or Sacramento Libertarian Party chair, among many of the hats he wears. But let's get into the topics. So identity politics, boy, I tell you, we've been hit over the head, it seems like, for the last 4 or 5 years with issues on race, CRT, all the terrible things they think that people are doing, especially who aren't in the Democrat Party. It seems like, oh my God, it's everybody's a racist if you don't go along with the Democrats. Well, my gosh, we had some audio leak back in October of something that was going on in a Los Angeles City Council meeting, and some of the stuff that was said behind closed doors with all these Democrats, essentially. I mean, these were mostly, I think, Latino Democrats who were saying this stuff. But in one of the audio leaks, apparently the LA City Council President, Neri Martinez, compared the adopted black son of fellow city councilman Mike Bonin to a monkey. And she later referred to Bonin as a gay white man, as a little B word, and said he is raising his child like a little white kid. This is just a sample of some of the stuff that was going on in this meeting. But I mean, holy crap, these are the people who are literally beating everybody else up, telling everybody else they're racist if they don't agree with everything they say. And it turns out they're the biggest racists of all behind the scenes. And I can't imagine, some of this. And, in fairness, some of the national Democrat leaders have called for some of these people to step down. So, I guess there's a fair amount of embarrassment within the Democrat Party. But I think, we got a good snapshot of, sort of when the behind the curtains, what goes on, what goes on in the back rooms of some of these places. What do you guys think about this? This is sounds totally ridiculous.
I don't know if you remember during the 2020 campaign, Joe Biden was on a show. It was Chamberlain Dagord. It's out of Chicago, I believe, was the host. And Joe Biden made a statement that if you have a difficulty deciding between himself and Donald Trump, you ain't black. The point is, though, racism within the Democratic Party is nothing new. So I am not shocked by this. I mean, maybe I'm shocked that it's probably somebody leaked it, right? Somebody leaked it. I'm probably a little shocked by that. Racism within the Democratic Party is nothing new. If you go at the history of this great land of ours and look at all the bad stuff that have happened to black people, where they are talking about slavery, where they're talking about Jim Crow, whether you're talking about the epidemic of dependency that you're seeing right now within especially within the major cities of America, whether you're looking at the education of black children within the inner cities in particular, every bad stuff that you could think about that have happened to black people in this great land is linked to the Democratic Party. And I'm not joking about that. And I don't mean to be conspiratorial. I don't mean to be anything. It is a fact. It could be easily checked. So when we hear these sort of things of what has happened here in this LA County City, the City Council meeting, it's not surprising. It's not shocking. One of the surprising things that have happened to me, because people have come to know me, especially during my working years, have come to know me as someone on the right. And Democrats will say some of the most god awful things to me, thinking that, well, of course, since Leon is on the right, we could confine in them some of our true feelings. Like, for instance, simple thing like affirmative action. Many of these Democrats that I have spoken to are opposed to affirmative action, but I'm talking especially white liberals, but they will never say that to publicly or anything like that. But if they find somebody who might be along there philosophically, even though I'm black, even philosophically, they think, oh well, I could say this to Leon, and which they have many many times. You know, so racism within the Democratic Party is nothing new. It's just that it's probably a little bit shocking to see that somebody actually leaked this, and it probably was a Democrat who leaked it, which I'm really truly surprised about. But this is nothing new. This has been going on since the beginning of this land, and it will continue because right now they're selling dependency within the inner cities of America for votes. That's what they're doing, and they will continue to do it as long as they stay in power.
Well, I got two things. One, it's projection, right? The Democrats' view on race is projection from their own views on race, right? It's what it is. Because if you look at it, their whole policy is race-based. Everything. It's they divide people up by immutable characteristics, and then they paste policies on those perspective differences. What they assume the differences are between the races, between your sexuality. Everybody is a dividing, right? You used to be all, as a bisexual man, you used to be all part of the gay community. Now it's this literally division by your letter, right? You're LGBTQ. You're not part of the gay community anymore. You're part of the L community. You're part of the B community. You're part of the G community. They've literally divide everybody up into the smallest things possible, and then they decide what differences you have. Where are you on the oppressive scale? So it doesn't surprise me that these Democrats have this racist tendency. Their whole philosophy is based upon dividing people by these characteristics. So the fact that they've divided people by characteristics is no surprise to me. It's just not.
This is where I think maybe the libertarians can make some ground on some of these, is because ultimately we are the party that respects the individual. And I mean, the individual is the smallest minority of all, essentially. And we're saying that we're all different. And so the idea that we respect each other, and we all try to treat each other equally under the eyes of the law, that's about I guess, as moral as you can be, I think, as far as not using force and dividing people. I mean, I can't imagine, looking at James and just thinking, oh, well, me and him, I'm measuring the melanin levels of our skin right now, and
Yes,
I think they're pretty close. I think I can get them within 2%, and so therefore I know that we think the same. I mean, I can't imagine thinking that way in your head. What kind of sort of a diseased mind thinks that way? And yet we constantly hear these people trying to tell us that we're part of either team white, Leon is part of team black. I mean,
yes.
this is insane. I mean, Leon's a person, I'm a person, James is a person, and we all have different ideas. We don't all think the same. I got news for the Democrats, and it's not because of our skin color. We all have different
Exactly.
experience.
Exactly.
Different
you
wants,
know,
needs, desires, experiences. Nature plus nurture equals you, right? That's kind of how the world works. So it's
indeed.
not a surprise to me.
Yeah.
Though. the left, the Democrats in particular, they claim Martin Luther King as one of their heroes. Okay, and nobody else could claim. Nobody on the right should claim him, according to them. And they always love to talk about this man's dream. But the man clearly said that he wants his children to grow up in a nation where they are judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Okay? We could also put in there content of character, we could put conduct, and we could put competence. We could put in there those things. But this was the man's dream. Okay? This was his dream. And they claim him. They claim him. But yet they sit around and divide us all up by race. Oh, Leon is black, so he should think this way and he should vote for us. And Biden said the quiet part out loud when he said, you ain't black if you can't decide between him and Trump. Okay? So everybody's in a little pigeonhole. Well, you guys are white, so we have to sometimes wonder, because you could go Republican and you could go Democrat, and that kind of stuff. So we have to be careful about you guys and that kind of stuff. But the whole point is, we have to move away from these pigeonholing people just because of their skin color. We have, or their sexual identity, or whatever it is, these things that they use to divide us up. We have to get back into that society that Martin Luther King was talking about, where character, where competence, where conduct matters the most. Nothing else should. I don't want to interact with you guys because you're white. I don't give a shit. Oh.
This is a podcast, Leon. It's not going to public access.
Okay. Yeah. I don't give one hoots about that. Okay? I will interact you guys because of your character, because of your competence, because of your conduct. That is what I will do, and that is the life I try to live. But these Democrats, boy, they are nothing but poison. That's what they are. They are poison.
Well, just to capitalize on something you just said too, and you talked about Martin Luther King and the dream. The dream was literally put into the California Constitution, where it said that the government may not discriminate on the basis of your color, ethnic group. I think a religious affiliation was probably in there too. I can't remember exactly, but that was in the Constitution. And it was just about, I think, 2019 or 2018 where the Democrats put on the ballot Prop 16, where they were trying to remove that language from the Constitution. Why? Because it doesn't go along with their wanting to divide people up by race and make policy on that. And I fortunately, that's one of the few things that gives me a little bit of a glimmer of hope. It didn't pass in California, which is absolutely blew me away. It was on, I don't know, about 3 or 4%. I think it didn't pass. So it wasn't like there aren't a lot of people who don't think that way here, but it's still the fact that the majority don't in a place like California. I'm thankful, close to Thanksgiving that we're not that far gone, that we're the majority are willing to essentially trash King's dream like that, literally pulling it out of our government constitution here. That just is insane to me. But speaking of measuring people on the basis of their skin, so a Congresswoman, let's see, I can't remember, Sheila Jackson Lee, she had recently said that if we would have had reparations, that would have apparently slowed the spread of COVID. And so it's amazing how every crisis can be used to advance every single pet project anybody has, including a lot of race-based projects. Now, I granted, there's some logic to ideas of reparations when you're talking about somebody who's, damaged by another person, and you can clearly tell that that's happened. But when we start to get into some of these issues of reparation at a policy level, there's some big difficulties in that. And one of them is, how do you measure these things? And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Looking at skin color, Elizabeth Warren tried to say she was an American Indian, and how she was measuring that, I have no clue. And yet she was filling out all these forms, government forms, claiming that she was an American Indian. So I just
Harvard University listed her as an American Indian. Okay.
Yeah, but this is part of the problem with all of these different schemes, and it is that how do you metric skin color? And quite frankly, with something like reparations, you're you're going back and you're doing something the government did terrible in the past, because government was literally doing this. They had policies based on skin color, and they were doing terrible things. But it just seems like the idea then of saying, oh, the answer is just to change the direction of that discrimination and let's try and measure skin color again, but in a better way. I don't know. But anyways, you guys have any thoughts on this? Both either the tie-in to the push for reparations, which, by the way, in California is real. They actually have real panels looking into this stuff.
Commission.
Yes, a
Yes.
commission, so
Yes.
that they can instill this stuff in government. And here you have sitting congresswoman that says, hey, reparations would solve our, let's get Fauci on board. It would solve all of our COVID problems. Apparently, that was the magic bullet. Who knew?
This idea of reparations is nothing but racist garbage. Okay, seriously, it is. It's nothing but racist garbage. Okay, it is true. We had slavery in the United States, and it was horrible. Okay, but all the slave owners, all the people who actually own slaves, they are dead. Okay, and all the
not
people
just
who
slavery too, but Jim Crow as well. So I mean, there's been a lot of terrible policy on race. That's sorry, Leo, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. I will accept that. But all of the people who were enslaved and most of the people who lived through Jim Crow are dead. Okay? So what do we do now? We're just gonna pick white people at random and say, you gotta pay for the sins of your forefathers. And we're just gonna take black people at random and say you should get benefits because your ancestors suffered under the hands of under slavery or under the elements of Jim Crow. This is nothing but racist nonsense. That's all it is. And then to make matters worse, even if you start to pay reparations, it's nothing but a government transfer. You're taking money from one group of people and giving it to another. We're doing gobs of that right now. Gobs of it. And is it making a difference anyway? When we see these government transfers going on, is it making a difference? Is it making a difference in the lives of the average black person in the inner cities of America? Is it? But Jackson Lee now come up with this congresswoman. God, it just boggles the mind that she comes up with this new radical, this wonderful idea. If we start paying reparations, all of a sudden we're going to stop the spread of COVID. Imagine that. Imagine how wonderful this thing could be. This new dependency program, if we just get this new dependency program going, oh my goodness, we're going to solve all the problems. It will even stop COVID, the spread of COVID. This is so wonderful. Why would you disagree with it? This is the poison of dependency that these people are selling. Okay? Reparations is nothing but racist garbage, and these people continue to sell this thing year in, year out.
Yeah, but why is they continuing to sell it, Leon? What is it now? We'll call it the racism industrial complex. They're going to get the Department of Racial Relations, right? That's or Reparation Relations or something like that, and they'll get this whole big huge department, another alphabet agency, and all these bureaucrats who are now union members who get to donate to the Democrat Party. And who's going to get the money? It won't. How much of this money will go to nonprofits that are affiliated, that just so happen to be affiliated with the right-thinking people, and the money will funnel to them, which will then get funneled back to the party that gives them the money in the first place. We know how this works, right? You can see it through the homeless industrial complex. You can see it through the military industrial complex. You can see it through the law enforcement industrial complex. That's how all this stuff works. It's just another way for them to give money to themselves, essentially, in the long run.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing that kills me on all this stuff, though, because if you're going to have a law and you're going to use force on people, at the very least, there should be a sound metric to determine whether or not somebody falls within the scope of that law, right? I mean, can you imagine, say, say some sort of a law on maybe robbing banks, maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head, or let's say something that the FDA does. That would be a better thing. Let's say the FDA requires certain percentages, right, of things they can measure in food, and now let's just say that, well, we're not going to actually measure anything. We just, hey, it looks like it to me, so we're going to go in there and stop you from selling this just because it looks like it to me, right? I mean, this is what we're literally doing with race. Nobody can make a clear metric on this stuff, and yet we want the government to go in and infringe on people's liberty. With this, it's absolutely astounding to me. It's like, Leon, when you made the generic claim, you said, well, your forefathers. I mean, beside my skin color, which I can't really metric either, how white I am, right? I mean, I don't know exactly how white I am by my skin color, but aside from that, I don't know who the hell my forefathers were beyond my great grandparents, maybe, and I never even met my great grandparents. So I never heard of any of them being involved in slavery or Jim Crow, but suppose maybe if you go out to great grandpa, I don't know, right? And the idea that somehow we're going to have some government bureaucrat that's going to measure this, I can't even imagine, that somebody like Elizabeth Warren is literally proud to go and get a DNA test so that she can hold it up and imagine she's a certain amount connected to a skin color group. I can't imagine any kind of thinking that's more disgusting than that. But yeah, anyways.
Well,
Sorry, soapbox.
How about this one? What about my children? My children are multiracial. Do they get reparations or do they pay them?
Yeah.
Well, I was, James, you took it. Yeah, good point. You took it out. You took it out of my mouth because I was going to talk about Barack Obama. As a matter of fact, Barack Obama on his father's side, don't have any connection to American slavery. Okay, on his father's side. Okay, his father was African. I mean, African, born, raised Africa, all that kind of stuff. So he had no connection to American slavery. On his mother's side, his forefathers were actually involved in slavery. His forefathers, I mean, several generations ago. Now, how? So you tell me now. Which gets back to your question: should Barack Obama, should he be paying? Should he be paying for reparations, or should he be receiving reparation payments? Okay. So how do you know? Okay, how do you know? Look at me. My children have no connection to American slavery. They have connection to slavery outside the United States, but they have no connection to slavery in the United States on both sides of our family. What do you do about people like this? Are they supposed to be paid reparations? Are they? They are American citizens. They are Black American citizens. So are we going to just pick up Black people at random and decide we're going to give them this quote unquote benefit? And then we're going to take white people at random, like you guys, your children, and that kind of stuff, and say, okay, fine, well, okay, you're white, so that's good enough. You should pay. This is the horror and the poison of this whole reparation thing they're talking about. It's nothing but poison. It's going to divide us and cause all kind of problems in society. I mean, slavery was a horror. Jim Crow was a horror. Nobody's questioning that. But to come on now and start telling me we're going to choose people at random of how they're going to pay, or who's going to pay and who's going to receive, this is poison. This is going to divide us and break our society.
Yeah. Well, speaking of these crazed policies that they're trying to get through government based on measuring somebody's identity. So San Francisco it's almost like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It seems like all these terrible ideas, this mind virus, is just coming out of San Francisco, and it all seems to just infiltrate our national thinking as well on a lot of these things. Well, their most recent genius idea is to have a public assistance program for low-income transgender residents. So now you might be say a low-income person. Maybe you're living in a tent, and maybe you've got some mental problems, maybe a drug problem, whatever. But apparently, if you're not transgender, then that's not enough to help you there. Right? I mean, you have to tell them about your sex life in order for you to somehow qualify for assistance. I can't imagine any kind of thinking that's more bizarre. Now, I've heard some people say that, okay, well, with the transgender group, maybe they're suffering more problems with maybe depression that gives them, maybe they're disproportionately represented in the distressed groups, then they'll be disproportionately helped by programs too. We don't need government to sit there and check on people's sex lives and figure out how to characterize them in order to get assistance. I just can't imagine anything more bonkers. You guys, I just imagine anything crazier.
Well, it's San Francisco, Jason. So what do you expect, right? What do you expect? You mean I never quite understand. Well, there are so many things wrong with this whole thing. Eh? First of all, we know there are issues with this whole transgender movement. Okay, transgender is a psychological disorder. Everybody knows that, and they're trying to treat it physiologically with this gender affirming care. We know all that is going on. Then on top of that, now they are trying to say, well, transgender is experiencing poverty at higher levels than everybody else. Okay, so what? Okay, so you have to now go and run around and tell people, well, I am transgender, I have suffering from this gender dysphoria, so now I should get this basic income and this basic universal basic income or whatever the hell they're calling it. Why are we giving any special dispensation to people who are poor to start with and not treat whatever the problem is that they're dealing with? Whether it's some psychological disease, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, or whether it's gender dysphoria. Why don't we try to help them treat that problem rather than saying, well, okay, we're just gonna give you money or give you this or give you that? Is this like the homeless problem we have right now? They never treat the problem that is causing the homelessness, which is drugs, alcohol, and mental disorder. We don't treat those things. We're gonna say, oh, we're gonna find an apartment for them and give them a house, and never maintain it. And next thing you know, they're back on the streets. Government officials cannot solve problems. They can't. And this is what they're trying to do here. Oh, they're looking at the transgender movement. Oh, we should have compassion for them because of, you know why? They suffer in poverty more than everybody else. I mean, I don't even know if that is true, actually. Okay. But even if it is true that transgender people suffer in poverty more than everybody else, then treat the problem that they're suffering with. Treat the problem that is causing this condition for them. Treat the problem. Try and help them treat the problem. Don't try to enable their disorder and then try to say they're going to take our money. And well, I don't live in San Francisco, but I'm sure I'm paying for it somehow or the other. But take our money and then give them to say, well, okay, go along. Everything is going to be wonderful as long as we could just give you this little bit of welfare. Isn't just another government transfer, which will do nothing to solve the problem of the people who are struggling through whatever issues they're dealing with.
Well, and if they're struggling in San Francisco, if they're struggling to get accepted in San Francisco as a trans, well, then there's something else wrong, right? Because you're accepted in San Francisco as a transgender person, and so
good point, James. Good point. Yes.
So there's not some cultural issue in San Francisco where transgender people are ostracized. It's just that doesn't happen in San Francisco. So there's other issues to be dealt with. And just handing people money doesn't solve problems. It just hands people money. It's not. You're not going to solve anybody's problems by writing a check.
Yeah.
You don't solve problems that way. It never has. Otherwise, our problems would be solved.
Yeah. Well, it seems that's a great point, James, too, that you're making. That, hey, look, if they're not accepted in San Francisco, where the hell else are they going to be accepted? I mean, this is kind of crazy, and which means it's really
exactly.
Well, exactly. I mean, so certainly they would have access to any other assistance that San Francisco is giving, which I'm sure those rates are higher than most places in the country. So the issue here is this is really about virtue signaling, right? I mean, it's really about saying that, hey, we want to send a signal out that we have special, consideration for this identity group, right? And it's really, gosh, whether it's race, sex identity, whatever it is, it seems like just moral cowardice that we're sitting here and we're all bending to this instead of standing up and saying, look, treat us all the same. Just, this is insane. If you're government, you should not be setting some kind of preference on these characteristics that we can't change. And it's funny too, because within the transgender community, that may be a slightly different question than race. It's possible that some of that is an immutable characteristic. It's possible that some of it might be nurture too. So, I mean, I'm sure that there's some mix going on there as well. But, the bottom line is, why is government sitting there for things that are sort of non sequiturs to "Are you in need"? That's the big question,
Yeah.
right? Not what do you do in the bedroom? It's "Are you in need?" That should be the question, right? And I think we all maybe are a little skeptical about whether the government should be even having some of those programs. But the bottom line is, if they are going to engage in them, let's not divide people at the same time and just compound our problems even worse.
Indeed, indeed.
That takes us to.
Well, now we could.
Go ahead, Leon. Leon, did you?
No, I was just going to say, no, maybe we could move to what we are thankful for. We're running up against 9 o'clock here pretty soon, and I really may have to. I really may have to run, but I don't want to run while the program is going on.
Okay, well, let's jump to the Knucklehead Noise Patrol, and we'll take a few seconds to say what we're thankful for right after that. So this is kind of funny. The military back in early October, the Secretary of the Army, rather. She was literally saying that, we are not woke, because this is part of the issue that we're all seeing, that this is kind of crazy stuff coming out of the Biden administration in San Francisco, this woke politics. And so she said, I'm not sure what woke means. I think we do have a wide range of soldiers in our army, and we've got to make them feel included. And that's why a lot of our diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are important. And so this is the issue, though. I mean, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, and these are, essentially, what's the mission of the military? I mean, I certainly, we don't want to discriminate against people for, immutable characteristics or anything else. But, suddenly we're talking about these issues of equity and other things like that just seem to be this language that the left is throwing in that, who knows what the hell it means. We used to talk about equality. Now we've sort of replaced that with equity. It just seems like they're always moving the ball on language and trying to confuse everybody. You guys got any thoughts on this whole, DEI and the military issue?
These people forget what our military is there for. Whether they agree or disagree, the military is there to fight and win wars. Okay, that's what they're here for. They are there to protect our sovereignty. But these idiots, this pretty face one here that you just put up here, Amy, whatever, this pretty face, they have nothing in her head, obviously. The only thing they could think about is, diversity. Well, who's going to disagree with diversity? Equity. Who's going to disagree with that? Who's going to disagree? Inclusion. Who's going to disagree with that? But how are we going to get there is the issue. Okay? How are we going to get there? What are they going to put in place? These people are doing nothing but what the Democrats always do. Divide people out by race and sexual identity just to get this utopia of racial harmony. How are you going to get racial harmony when you're purposely out there poisoning our members of society along the lines of race and along the line of sexual identity and so on? How are we going to get there? But this pretty face, that's why she's there for, because she's pretty. Can't think about anything else.
Yeah, no, it's the fact that you're trying to unite people by dividing them is ludicrous on its face, and it's just ludicrous on its face. I've got nothing else than that there, Jason. There you go. I'll keep it short.
Well, yeah, that seems like a pretty good way to end, that this stuff is pretty ludicrous. What are you guys thankful for, by the way? I mean, apparently, the left is just thankful if they can divide us. Well, what are we thankful for as sort of liberty-minded people?
Well, I am thankful for my family. I am thankful for the life that they have and the life that I have been able to contribute to. I am really thankful for that. I have a wife, two boys and a grandson. I am truly thankful for that. On top of all of that, I am thankful to be living here in this great land of ours, which we are trying to keep together. I am thankful that I live here in the United States, even though I was not born here. I believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I am thankful that I can be here and be in this little bit of a fight to keep this land as great as it is.
Well, I'm thankful for, the last few years has been a rough road for me, and I am thankful that I am still here to continue walking it with you guys and, the people of the movement and just people in general. I've got regained a perspective of while I'm actually here is to help people, and I have the opportunity to do that, and that's what I am thankful for.
And I'm thankful that, like I said, echo both of you guys that, hey, we've still got the freedom of speech, that we're able to sort of fight together to try and preserve that freedom of speech. And, maybe some of our other liberties, it seems like we're in danger. We're on the margin of potentially losing a lot of these things. And, boy, I would be really thankful if a lot more people will exercise a little bit of moral courage and stand up and fight for that liberty with us. So hopefully you guys can who are watching can help spread the word. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you guys for participating today, and we will see you at the next one. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, indeed. Happy Thanksgiving. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.